Gold stocks have a life cycle that's very similar to biotechnology. Mining has to go through, like, say, the EPA cycle, and biotechnology has to go through the FDA. They go through 3 stages, and you know their DNA and volatility is the same. It's remarkable. And so there's a big exploration discovery. They go up 10-fold, 20-fold. They all fall the square root of the top of the stock price. They just fall, and then they go through that period before the new product comes out in biotech or it starts producing.
This episode of Mining Stock Education is brought to you by U.S. Gold Corp. U.S. Gold Corp is a U.S.-focused gold exploration and development company advancing high-potential projects in Wyoming and Nevada. U.S. Gold Corp has consolidated a district on Nevada's productive Cortex Trend and is advancing the Copper King project towards production in Wyoming. Led by a team of prolific company builders and renowned explorers, including Dave Mathewson, who's directly responsible for several major Nevada gold discoveries. U.S. Gold Corp is well-financed and has an extremely tight share structure with less than 20 million shares outstanding, and it trades on a major stock exchange, the NASDAQ, under the ticker USAU. To learn more, go to usgoldcorp.gold. That's usgoldcorp.gold. You are listening to Mining Stock Education. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Bill Powers, your host, still at the PDAC 2019, and I'm having the pleasure of sitting down with Frank Holmes, the CEO and Chief Investment Officer of U.S. Global Investors. Frank, thanks for taking the time to sit down with me.
It's great to be with you.
Well, my understanding of your story is that your dad was an Anglican minister, but here you are, the Chief Investment Officer of a major fund that's publicly traded. What's your journey? How did you get here?
Oh, my mother also was a nurse that became a social worker and educator in Toronto. And she had the richest area and the poorest area of Toronto, St. George riding. So she was an elective process. So she was taking care of the social needs and educational needs. And my father was involved in the sort of the spiritual element of people's needs and social needs. I was always fascinated. I was going to go to medical school. And I was in pre-med and I pivoted and went into finance. So I took care of, rather than taking care of the H, health, changed it to W, wealth.
And then what's your journey to where you're the lead man on this major company? I mean, what are some of the steps along the way?
I think success is nonlinear. You know, it's really important for people to realize it, but you have to have goals and visions, and to get there, it's easy to lose your faith and your hope. And I love the acronyms HOPE for have only positive expectations. And you've got to have that to get through the disappointments and delays as you go for your vision, your goal. And for young people, I always tell them, make sure you have values. There are some real common denominators of people who are successful in any common industry, and that is they have more initiative. They just are more curious, and that drives their initiative. Rather than being told what to have to do, they're just in their belly, they just do it. And just be honest with yourself. And Sir John Templeton, he had a great line, and it was always, most people buy a stock and then pray, oh God, please help it to go up. And he said, you should pray before you buy the stock and then sleep well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important to that, almost like you meditate, you pray is an important part of when you're making all these decisions. But people's money is very important. People do crazy things for money. They sacrifice their health for money. So having a balance, just like you have for diet, for your health, the same thing with balancing for your wealth.
So if a younger professional, 21-year-old is listening to us, they're attracted to the resource space, they're actually attracted, of course, to the prosperity that successful resource investing and a finance professional in this space can provide them, what would be some of your advice, and what about some of the risks or things they need to navigate as they work their way up?
Well, gold as an asset class is an interesting asset class because bullion itself has the same DNA of volatility of the S&P 500. Over 1 day, 1 month, 3 months, going back decades, it's plus or minus 70% of the time 1%. But gold stocks are plus or minus 3%. So that automatically creates a different level. And when you're young, you have to be taking those risks, but you have to understand that there's this greater volatility before you go and speculate. And I've tried to tell people that look at royalty companies. I created a smart beta intelligent product listed in the New York Stock Exchange called GoAU for Go Gold. It's outperformed all the gold fund managers. It's an easy way to buy it. But when you buy something like that and you're young, just buy 10% and rebalance each year. Because the years that it outperforms, you'll take profits and you'll buy the S&P 500 or other stocks you like. And the years that underperforms, take profits something else and you rebuy. Because that type of concept has far outperformed over the past 20 years. So that's the way I take the 10% golden rule.
When we're at PDAC, what are your thoughts on PDAC this year versus previous year, and what might that indicate to the larger macro perspective of this sector?
It's a big smorgasbord here. I mean, it's so easy to get lost. Me finding you is like a journey on its own. Thanks for coming out and finding me. No, it's 25,000 people coming to this event from 50 different countries. I think these type of events are where you hear stories, and part of knowledge is it's like A and B. You have what they call explicit knowledge, getting your driver's license. Doesn't mean you're a good driver. Tacit knowledge, you know how to drive. So if all of a sudden you're sitting in the UK and you got to drive the opposite side of the road, you have to get a new test and you have to learn to drive the opposite side of the road. So explicit and tacit knowledge, these conferences are good for the tacit feeling, that you come and hear stories, you learn about people and what they're doing. I think that's what's the good part that I get from it. But I think for these young investors, I really recommend that they just really go and explore about when they're going to look at gold. The gold stocks have a life cycle that's very similar to biotechnology. Biotechnology has to go through, mining has to go through, like, say, the EPA cycle, and biotechnology has to go through the FDA. They go through 3 stages, and their DNA and volatility is the same. It's remarkable. And so there's a big exploration discovery. They go up 10-fold, 20-fold. They all fall the square root of the top of the stock price. They just fall, and then they go through that period before the new product comes out in biotech or it starts producing. So you have to really understand the life cycle of a gold mine. In fact, at usfunds.com, we've won many awards for education, and we have a 4-minute video called The Life Cycle of a Mine. It's for young people to understand that wave. And I tell them it's the same as biotechnology.
And that's one of the first things I agree. Like, for a new investor in this space, that's one of the life cycle of a mining share is one of the first things they need to learn.
Absolutely. And realize the pattern is not just with gold stocks, etc. It's also in biotechnology, where there's much more money that's going into finding cures for cancer or asthma, whatever else the disease is, their affliction.
Your gold thesis. You're a gold bull, as am I. But I've invested in gold companies and I've lost 40, 60% in a year. If you hit it wrong, even if it's a good company, good management, maybe they have some money, but the gold price goes down, we lose money on our equities, at least in the short term. Could your bullish gold thesis be wrong, at least, let's say, for the next 3 years? Are you willing to entertain that possibility?
Well, that's probably a big reason why I've always said the 10% golden rule, that it should be 10% of your overall portfolio. And gold stocks have are different animals to bullion itself, and so that's why, with that, I'm really constructively bullish. There's many fundamental factors. We're at a 50-year high on new central banks because of Europe, emerging Europe, Poles, the Czechs, Hungarians. They're all buying bullion and diversifying their central banks, foreign currencies. So there's something that's happening there, but that's only 40% of gold demand. It's the fear. The 60% is love. And in China and India is 40% of the world's population, and it's highly correlated that they buy more gold if their GDP per capita is rising. And so I think there's a backdrop of there's continuously buying that takes place in the other part of the world. And I also believe that we have peak gold, and we have all this drama. Barrick now trying to take on Newmont, and Newmont taking Goldcorp. Do you know what happens if Barrick and Newmont come as one? 14 million ounces, they can't replace that in production a year. It's not happening. We're at peak gold. We had peak oil until the frackers from Texas and Dakotas came along and they changed the landscape. But there's no technological breakthrough that can accelerate from a discovery to production that's going to change the gold world. You see a massive drop in discoveries. It's so hard when you speculate on junior explorers. It's really, really tough because no one's been finding anything, and exploration budgets are now dropping. So I think that investors have to recognize it's peak gold, and it's going to climb like palladium. Palladium's in deficit, Oh wow, palladium's up for again another best performing commodity last year, hit 1,500. Why? It's in deficit. The demand for palladium for a clean environment is so great that they miss that it's climbing.
You mentioned to me pre-record that there's a company you like that uses artificial intelligence to help explorers find
I'm
gold.
so thrilled to be honored, with young minds. Gold Spot, it's a new company listed, Spot's a ticker, and it's a profitable little business. We raised $10 million, that's listed. And Eric Spot owns 10%, I own goes about 10%. Elliott Management through Triple Flags owns 10%. Hochschild, another major investor, owns 10%. And you have these kids, 29 years old with PhDs in geostatistical models and tectonic plates in history, etc. And they can look at data. Now, if you have a great athlete, you have a gift that you have better peripheral vision. Like Rod Carew could see the name on the ball spinning coming at him. Everything slows down for you. They say Wayne Gretzky, the puck was in slow motion for him, it was fast for us. When we use AI, you can process so much more that it's almost like you're in the gifted 2%. Now what it does is it minimalizes a lot of wasted money spent on exploration. It doesn't find the sweet spot every time, but it gets rid of a lot of wasted money spent exploring. And it's going to grow and go. It's young investors, young people behind it. I went to their opening event here, and I was the oldest guy in the room. I felt like granddad here. And I go to another event, and I'm the youngest guy in the room. So you're seeing young millennials. They're more attracted to this and blockchain world, the AI. So this is the first actual public company to go public with pure AI. And if it was in Silicon Valley, those PhDs are worth between $5 to $10 million per person. So we have 9 of them. Wow, that makes the stock automatically undervalued. And we have 11 other scientists that will take the data. And so I think it's going to become huge boom. And what our business model is to get royalties on these juniors. So they can come to us, but if we're not going to do the work, we don't want them. We go and look for companies because we've done all this due diligence. We've downloaded all the data on CDAR since 2000. I mean, and it's all in the cloud, and we all process and look at it. Every director, every CEO, CFO, what their track record, what their discovery was, who was a winner, who was a loser, all that data collection, and then look at all the geological data that's public in the public domain in Quebec and Newfoundland. So it's very exciting for me. It's rejuvenating me around young bloods, young guns that have great ethics and great values.
I've heard you say, I believe in past years, that what would increase gold discoveries, and you had mentioned it would be some sort of technology that could see into the earth to basically identify. Now this isn't seeing to the earth, but it's taking existing empirical data, then using machine learning based on historical precedent of finding deposits and seeing if they can see similar things. Is that correct? Basically, it's a human brain that can process quicker where potential targets are?
Like coming back to the gifted athlete, or a gifted surgeon, or gifted architect. They can rotate, the 2% can rotate a cup 3-dimensionally in their brain. I can't do that. But gifted people can. They can see things 3-dimensionally and slow down the rotation of it. When you when you have a geo, that's a very good geo, they can look at 3 different types of geological maps and overlay them and try to say this is a better spot. A young geo may be able to do 2 efficiently. The best can use 4. They do 50 different perspectives and views and look for relationships. So I think it's going to help some of these junior mining. I think a lot of them are going to just go disappear because they don't really they have moose pasture. They really don't have stuff which has a high probability of a discovery, copper, gold, whatever.
As we conclude here, any other companies that you've seen at PDAC that you'd like to share with my listeners?
One of the bonds we own is called Grand Columbia. GCM is a stock. It's producing 200,000 ounces and growing. It's the largest gold producer in Colombia. It's high grade. But they floated a gold note, which I was very much instrumental in the creation of. And it has collateral on all the assets. It's well covered, and it pays 8.25%, and it pays on a monthly basis. And anything above 1250, you get higher payments. So gold runs to 1900, all of a sudden the yield's going to be over 20%. So you get to participate in the rise of the price of gold by your increasing monthly income. So where can you get like a money market fund type of asset that's paying you that yield that high from a company that basically has no debt and is piling cash? Each quarter, their cash position is growing on their balance sheet. So a company like that is a great diversifier in a portfolio.
Frank, I appreciate you sitting down with me. I know you have another interview right after this, but thanks for coming on Mining Stock Education.
Thank you for the opportunity of sharing my thoughts.
Orin Resources is a junior exploration company with the appetite of a major, focused on finding the next globally significant discovery to create enormous potential upside for shareholders. It's one of the most aggressive exploration companies pursuing high-grade, scalable gold and copper deposits, and has a premier 7-project portfolio including its 2 flagships, Committee Bay in the Arctic and Sombrero in Peru. With Orin's unparalleled technical team and highly experienced management with a history of success in advancing and monetizing exploration assets, Orin has been called one of the best in the junior exploration sector. Orin trades on the TSX and NYSE under the ticker AUG. To learn more, go to aurinresources.com. That's AURYN resources.com. Thank you for listening to this Mining Stock Education podcast. Please subscribe and share with like-minded investors. Visit us on the web at MiningStockEducation.com for more resources on precious metals and natural resource investing. At our website, you can also sign up for our free newsletter for interview transcripts, stock picks, and more.